Big Ten football title to be decided Saturday as well. 6th-ranked Ohio State will take on number 21 Northwestern. Southview grad Nate Hall tied for the Wildcat team lead with 3 interceptions, even with missing some time this season due to injury and suspension for a dubious targeting call. But he's not the only Northwest Ohioan who should see action in Indy. A pair of former St. John's Titan linebackers will line up on the opposite sidelines. True freshman Dallas Gant for the Bucks and redshirt freshman Peter McIntyre for Northwestern. Their former coach,
obviously, with
Doug Pearson,
the two great programs,
also
two of the better.
Is not surprised by their success.
Obviously, with the two great programs, also two of the better players I ever had here at St. John's. So I'm really looking forward. I'm excited for it for Saturday, and hopefully they bump into each other literally. So that'll be good. Well, I watched Dallas play as an 8th grader, and I knew then he was going to be a special guy. And Pete was as a freshman came in here, and I didn't move him up to the varsity as a freshman. I played him down, but we knew the great things were ahead for him. And from his sophomore year on, he's one of our better players. So it was pretty easy to spot those. So they kind of jump out at you.
Good to see Coach Pearson again. All right, a championship game is not the ideal time to break in a new starting O-lineman, but that is what the Buckeyes will have to do after guard Demetrius injured his foot late in the win over Michigan. Wyatt Davis will get the start in his place, a topic Mark Kuntz at LettermanRose.com's Jeremy Birmingham discussed earlier this week.
And Urban had some interesting things to say about Wyatt Davis on Monday. Basically that they thought Davis was probably good enough to start the past couple of weeks, but they didn't want to disrupt the chemistry on that offensive line. So from a talent perspective, plugging in Wyatt Davis shouldn't be an issue. But with the offensive line, it's so much about the chemistry, about knowing what each guy's going to do, working as a unit together. So Davis will get plugged in for the remainder of the season.
Yeah, Wyatt Davis was the country's #1 ranked offensive guard coming out of high school in California 2 years ago. He's a player that Ohio State has brought along slowly like they normally do with their offensive linemen because, as you mentioned, it's such a complex position and there is a different level of chemistry needed to really perform at their best. All year long, Ohio State had been able to run the same 5 guys out there with Demetrius Knox and Malcolm Pridgeon at guard. Despite some struggles they had throughout the early part of the year, you didn't want to risk that. So Wyatt Davis has played a lot on special teams. He's been playing a lot when the Buckeyes have had big offensive games. In the last few weeks, they've worked him in almost as an extra tight end. But he's a guy who's been waiting patiently for his opportunity, and it's extremely unfortunate for Demetrius Knox. He went through a up and down career at Ohio State to the point where he wanted to quit and transfer multiple times. Got his first start a year ago against Michigan, and for him to break his foot in that situation on a play that didn't matter, and I think Urban Meyer was a little upset with himself for running one more play instead of just taking a knee at that point, but that's football, and it's unfortunate. But as you mentioned, when you're talking about talent, Wyatt Davis's upside is probably a little bit better than the guys he's replacing. And then the Buckeyes do have Brandon Bowen back as well if something else goes awry. So the offensive line is much healthier now than it has been all year, despite losing a starter.